My name is Thomas Dukinitas and I'm in charge of the visual effects for the Basement Film Group's Doctor Who project. Today I'll show you on this episode of Behind the Box how I made the opening title. Step by step we'll cover animation, rendering and compositing.
The first thing we're going to take a look at is the animation. This is the process of actually making everything move, and in this case making it move in synchronization with the sound. So if we take a look at the view window over here, you'll see a basic version of the opening titles, and what you're about to see is created on the spot by the computer's graphics card. That's why it looks a bit like a video game, because final effects like lighting and shadows haven't been added yet. Plus you can actually see the letters in the distance, and you know, they haven't got the appearing effects. Plus the vortex looks quite basic right now, but this is an overview of how everything should move. And if I stop the animation and take away the view window, you'll see here just a bunch of lines. You probably won't understand what they are, but they're called animation curves. If I, for example, my TARDIS is called here Model 1. If I have a look at the animation curves of Model 1, I get some basic lines, and what these lines are, it's basically the position over time. So time is left and right, and the position is up and down. And if I have a look, you've got the different axes, which X in this case, if we have a look at the view window again, X is left and right, Y is up and down, and Z is back and forth. So based on these curves over time, you'll see the TARDIS, which here looks a bit funky because I've got it selected. Let's make the view window a bit smaller so you can actually see the curves. If you have a look, I put all the curves on, you see, for example, here we don't have a lot of movement, but here we have quite a bit of movement. So if you see, this is probably where the TARDIS goes off screen. So you know, it goes up and it goes forward to the camera. So for example, for the Z position, up is way in the distance and down is behind the camera. Same thing goes for every single object. For example, this is the camera's animation, and you can see the text has an animation. And if we see them all together, obviously we won't understand what's happening because we've got too many lines. And another thing about this project, if I maximize the view window bit, and I go to the editor camera, and let me turn off my environment so we can see things a bit better, you'll see the vortex is basically a tube. Now obviously we can't see quite ahead because of the limitations of the draw distance, but if I go somewhere in the middle where the camera actually catches up with where we are, let's see, if you have a look here, everything is, including the camera and the text, is on a what we call a null object, which is basically an object that doesn't have any anything to do with the rendering. It's just, for example, a rig. So instead of actually moving the vortex in front of the camera to make it look like it's moving, the camera actually moves through the vortex with all the other objects. This green line indicates what the camera is seeing. So if we have a look at the scene camera, we'll see that the vortex is actually moving with us. So now we're going to have a look at rendering. Rendering is the process of actually taking that animation and saving it to images. So we have a look here in our folders, in the folder opening titles. I have a folder called render passes, and what render passes are, it's video files with everything saved separately. So if we have a look here, and everything that comes out of the animation stage is rendered to images, which and not video files, and basically it's every frame saved separately. So if I go forward, you can see this is the image sequence for the actual titles, and it's transparent behind, so we can later in compositing add everything back together again. So if we just continue to go forward, we'll see titles, and everything else here is saved separately again. So for example, this is one of the actors, and also the TARDIS. Now here it was saved as a video file for a number of different reasons, but you know, it's rare, so usually when I save things from animation they come in images. So let's see. Oh, okay, it's probably this one then, TARDIS bus. Now this is a bit too big for the window, so there we go. So if I press play, you will actually see the TARDIS on its own, on a black background this time, because although it is transparent here, if you play it as a video file you will see it as black, but later After Effects will be able to open it separately, and as you can see here, it spins and titles are here usually, and it, you know, flies away and does its thing, and then flies in for the end. And now we're going to have a look at compositing. Now compositing is the process of actually taking all those render passes and putting them together and adding the final touches to the effect. So here, if we have a look, everything is stacked up in layers. Now if you've ever worked in Photoshop or some other image editing program that is layer based, you will basically understand how everything works here. After Effects is usually considered the Photoshop of video. That's why people who actually use Photoshop have an easy time to use it. So if we have a look at the layers, first of all we have our audio layer, just for synchronization, so we know what's happening. Then in the back, if I go full resolution here and zoom in a bit, you will see we have our star field. Now here, although it seems like it's just a small square, it's repeating infinitely. That's why it's all over the screen, because it's a relatively small square texture. And if we go ahead, let's go back to quarter so everything is a bit easier to manage. Here this clip is, let's see, what's it say? This is the vortex as it is unedited, so it's just a simple bluish texture. And then if we go on, double click on this, this is a separate composition, and it's the vortex with some added effects to make it look like the classic slit screen, which was in one of the older Doctor Who's, I believe it was on Tom Baker's Doctor Who. And then if we go on, we have different titles. This is some of the different effects, like for example this is the titles unedited, which is the basic version. And then if we add all the other layers, we will see some of these special light effects. That's why we have two layers for the same thing. This is just the plain title, and the above layer is the appearance effect, which if we look at it on black, it's, you know, just a basic blur. And then above, if we continue on, this is the TARDIS, unedited. It's just color corrected slightly so it fits in with the rest of the composition. And this is an obscuration layer, so it goes actually behind the text. So if I actually turn it off, you can see the TARDIS is in front. But if we go alpha inverted, which is basically just a card going from here and stopping here at the line, then here we have a null object exported from animation for the light. So we've added a lens flare to make it look a bit more real. So if we have a look here, you can see kind of a little glow where the light is. And above here we have the final touches of the layer. So if we go to a frame where you can see some things, if we turn off all the corrections, you can see it kind of looks a bit plain. So then we add a diffuse filter to make glow a bit, then we add another glow, then some different slight glows. Then the reverse flare is just the little, takes all the bright areas, flips them around and makes them look a bit like a real lens flare. And then for the final touch we add a vignette which adds a few black borders around. And after that basically it's ready, and it is saved from After Effects to a separate video file, which is then sent to the editor over in the UK, and it gets assembled with everything else. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Behind the Box. I will see you in a future episode where I'll show you how I made some of the visual effects for the episode. See you next time.